Okay, so welcome everyone. Nice to be meeting you again on this Ellen Patricia YouTube channel. So thankful always for the technology that enable us to meet even though it's virtually. So I hope everyone is excited about the topic that we are going to talk about. It's about beliefs and what are they, and also how to shift them. So before we start with our talk, let's just get to know who are the people in the room. And if you are already tuning in to our talk, feel free to just say hi in our comment box so that I can acknowledge your presence and I can say hi to you so we can create this sense of really being in the same room and having this conversation. And if you are new to this channel, just want to let you know that this is actually a two-way conversation whereby I and our guest speaker will be sharing about some things, and you are free to join into our conversation. You can bring in your questions, you can have comments about what we shared, so that really we create this sense of building a collective wisdom together. So again, if you are already in this room together with us in this YouTube channel, feel free to just say hi so that I will acknowledge your presence. And feel free to jump in whenever you want to jump into the conversation later on. So for those who are new to this talk or this podcast, my name is Ellen Patricia. In this context, I am representing our organization, which is called Bersama. And we are a social enterprise whereby we are focusing on the well-being, mental well-being, emotional well-being, and also personal growth. So we have a lot of programs focusing on those three areas. And this talk is actually also part of that because we will be exploring the context of beliefs from that lens of well-being in terms of mental well-being, emotional well-being, as well as personal growth. So if you want to know also what are previous talks, you are welcome to just explore this channel. There are some previous conversation that we are actually still keeping in the channel. And just please kindly note that all the talk that are now in the Ellen Patricia YouTube channel are all the interviews that I have with my guest speakers. Whereas the talk that I do personally, we usually keep that only 2 days. I think it is 2 days. And then after that, we move them into our membership site, which is called Bersama Transformation Online Learning Platform. So we have another platform for specifically for learning. And if you want to know more about that, feel free to just reach out through our website, www.bersama.com. Then we will get back to you on whatever information that you would like to know. So hi, Bu Ratna. Hi, Bu Lisa. Nice to have you with us. Thank you for coming and joining us. Hi, Bu Esa. Welcome. Great. So let's start with me introducing what the topic is about and also our amazing speaker that is already with us today. So the topic is beliefs. And I know if you are into this mental well-being, emotional well-being, and personal growth, belief is something that we really want to work on like continuously for the rest of our life, because that is something that really going to affect our personal growth, our well-being. And I'm so excited that today I am joined by a very, I think, someone that you will learn a lot because she really has strong background in terms of beliefs. So Larissa, thank you for joining us.
Yay, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for showing up and sharing with our community. So this is Larissa McCoo, and I'll be reading her bio for all of you. And by the way, if you want to know more about her, you can find her in her website. She has her own website, and she's the founder of Abundance Academy. So her website can be found there. Let me just open that so that I can read the bio. So Larissa is a savvy, sought-after speaker, master result coach, educator, and author of Stop Procrastinating Your Life Away. Discover the secrets to more time, money, and freedom. So this is a book that she has written, and you definitely are welcome to just get a copy of her book. So with ruthless compassion, Larissa leads highly successful, motivated, conscious entrepreneurs through mental barriers and into unstoppable confidence, authenticity, and empowerment. holding designations as a certified consultant with Bob Proctor and the Proctor Gallagher Institute, Master Result Coach, Master of Timeline Therapy, trainer and institute head of Neuro-Linguistic Programming and Hypnotherapy, Larissa powerfully blends science and psychology to help you unlock your magic and become all you're capable of being, whether more passion or profit. And in her downtime, you'll find Larissa dancing, enjoying music, creating adventures through travel as permitted, tapping into nature in cottage country, enjoying the nooks and crannies of Toronto, and living her active and best life with her husband and young son. So that's sort of like a brief introduction of our guest speaker today, Larissa Magut. So that's such an awesome background. Again, thank you for showing with us and sharing your wisdom.
Great. You're welcome. This is going to be so much fun. I've been really looking forward to this all week.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So, Larissa, we are going to talk about beliefs. What are they and how to shift them? So, what would you say would be good as a foundation for us to talk about this?
I think when it comes to beliefs, when you have, one of the things I've learned from so many of my mentors is that knowledge is power, and applied knowledge is even greater power. But if you have no context, if you have no cup to hold something in, then you can't really contextualize things. So even just starting with the definition of what a belief is and really looking at what they are in and of themselves, I think that's a beautiful place to start, because when you understand or when you comprehend what's actually happening, you can start putting yourself in the driver's seat of your own life in order to change it.
Okay, that's awesome. So, in your own words, what would you define belief? Or how would you define that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's so many different ways. I remember when I was learning about beliefs and studying, I'd look up everyone's different definitions, and I think they're actually all valid. And the more you understand why people use different definitions, then the more you can see how they apply to your life. And so at the core, beliefs are decisions. And these are decisions that you've made at a certain point in time. These are assumptions that you have about certain things. And you tend to repeat them. They're repetitive thought patterns and thoughts that you keep thinking that ultimately turn into these mental programs. Wow. And these mental programs create the meanings you give experiences. And they can lead to your convictions or acceptances of certain things as true or not true. And so when you really start thinking about it, though, a belief at its core is a decision. And it's not necessarily a logical decision that you made. It's not necessarily a decision you made in your conscious awareness, but it's a decision you made at some point, probably the best decision you could make at the time. Most beliefs are created, like the big ones that hold us hostage, or the big ones that are out of our awareness that might cause us to spin our wheels. They were created prior to 7 years of age. And I have a 6.5-year-old, and he's so smart. He's so great. He's so brilliant. He works really hard, and he's got great level of awareness, and he's 6.5. So his judgment is very questionable at certain points in time. Some of the things he does are brilliant, and other things, he's still 6.5. And so somewhere between 7 and 9 is when we get a part of our brain that we refer to as the critical faculty that allows us to be able to reason and start thinking things through in a more logical way. Prior to that, it's almost like you take your mind and you open it up and things just go in, and then you go, okay, lock it up. It's true. And so everything you've seen, everything you heard, everything you've experienced has gone into your world. And when you were younger, you didn't really think it through. You adopted the things that other people said were true as true to you, whether it made sense or not. Even stuff you see on TV or things you hear from your friends, like some of the things that my son comes home from school with are just very interesting. And he's just like, of course it's like this. I'm like, okay, let's talk about this one. And so there's an untangling process, but when you're younger, you just accept things as true.
Mm. So that's very interesting way of like unpackaging this word beliefs. So there's a few things that I heard you mentioning that really caught my attention. First is the word decision. So it's like at that point, and you were mentioning that these beliefs, most of the beliefs, like the big ones that hold us hostage, is actually comes from our life prior to 7 years old, which is
Yeah.
we can all, as adults, imagine how much reason and logic can a person with less than 7 years old make about the world
Mhm.
and comprehend about the psychology of human and also know the dynamics in relationship. But that's what happened with that very limited resources of ability to think. We make that decision and assumptions about this big issue in life, like who am I, my relationship, the dynamics, what the world is. So it's so amazing that prior to 7 years old, we already make decision. This is who am I. This is how the world is. This is how relationship is. And no wonder so many things go haywire because we are operating as adult, but with the mental program of someone with less than 7 years old.
Yeah. And we do make decisions and we adopt beliefs later. However, a lot of the ones that really have been around for our entire lives, I do breakthrough processes with clients and I work with clients in all kinds of capacities. And their biggest problems, the ones that they had when they were younger, the ones that they had in college, the ones that they had when they were in their careers or different phases of their careers, the ones that keep following them in different ways, whether it's toxic relationships, whether it's hitting a plateau, maybe you just can't get the grades high enough. And then in work, you just can't get the income high enough because you don't feel worthy of something. And it's those things that when I talk to a client, how long has it been like this? Oh, forever.
Hmm.
I don't ever remember it being different. It's those kinds of decisions. And I'm going to give you an example. So let's say a little girl loves her parents and wants her parents to love her. So what does she do? Um, that gets attention. Well, maybe they need quiet in the house. And every time she comes up and asks questions, they get annoyed and they shush her, shush her, shush her. So she starts being quiet and then they compliment her. And so she learns that good girls are quiet. Don't speak up. Don't be controversial. Don't tell me what you want or you're not going to be a good girl. You won't get my love and affection if you speak up. You won't succeed in life if you speak up because you get praised when you're quiet. And all of a sudden, you just withdraw your own opinion. To be a good
Hmm.
girl, get that loving connection that every kid wants. No parent wants to do this, right? So if you've done this to your kids, it's okay. You can work it out. It's okay. However, when we're parents, we want to be aware of this because these are things that parents might might instill in us out of their awareness. This is not a conscious thing. No parent says, "Oh, I want my child to have these negative paradigms or beliefs about themselves." However, sometimes in their actions or behaviors or in their words, they demonstrate that. Let's say another parent, they're always talking about money. Oh, there's just never enough money. Oh, we can't do that. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. No, 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 we can't buy that. We can't afford it. No, we wouldn't want to do that. We can't afford it. So what does this kid do? Go through their whole life saying, oh, no, 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 I can't afford it. So even if they earn off 100,000, 500,000, $1 million, I can't afford it.
Hmm.
Might have logically, they might see the money in their bank account, um, or they may not feel worthy of even having it because my family couldn't afford it and now I can. But what makes me worthy of having that? I had a client that earned several $1 million a year and didn't feel confident buying herself a new barbecue. She earns
Hmm.
millions of dollars. She didn't feel confident buying herself a barbecue for a few hundred
Wow.
dollars. She
That's
wasn't even saying like
amazing.
top of the line. She could have gotten a big one, but just like regular barbecue. And she had the money. there was so many other greater limitations. And until she could actually deal with the root cause of what led to this, she could have just gone out and bought the barbecue. I just said, just go buy the barbecue. She wouldn't have felt good about it.
Mm.
Something in her world would have sabotaged the experience. She would have resented it. She would have felt terrible every time she saw it, because it's not the action. And I think one thing that I think a lot of people need to know is you can go change the behavior that's contradictory to the belief you have, and you could go do the good behavior. But if you try to change the result that you're after at the behavior level without changing the belief, it's never going to be long lasting. You
Mm-hmm.
won't need to change at the belief level, because your thoughts, they lead to your feelings, they lead to your actions, and ultimately they lead to your results. But what leads to the thoughts you think? The beliefs. And so you've got to go further up the chain so you can let things trickle down. So beliefs up here will lead to the good thought seeds. And the good thoughts, and the good thoughts, they are in your head, and they sometimes have like cool movies, they have great scripts. We talk to ourselves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We express them through our mouths. Sometimes we don't even think about what we're saying. If most people thought about what they were actually saying, they would be a lot quieter than they really are. Because so many times, oh, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. No, no, no. They put themselves down, or they say something silly, and it's not a joke. You've literally put it out in the universe. And then that will lead to the feelings you have, your emotional
Yes.
state, and ultimately the actions you take. But if you try to force the actions, they might have an effect on your feelings and on your thoughts, but the ultimate change must happen at a higher level. So you've got to reprogram your belief system. And it's totally possible. There's been so much research. I think the beautiful thing about being alive right now is we don't just have the idea that this is possible, but we have scientific evidence. We've
Mm-hmm.
got so much research, and not just from one modality. I think so often people are looking for a quick fix or one solution. How do you change the belief? Give me the one way. There are so many ways you can do this, and they can all work. They're not all going to work for you.
Yes. I
People
think
respond
that's
to things.
Yeah, I think that's so awesome. I think two things really stands out for me as I listen to you sharing about that. One is the example that you've given about the client who struggled to just buy a barbecue equipment for her, despite her income actually can probably buy her 50 of that easily. And what you say is that oftentimes we struggle to do something not because we do not have the resource to do it, but because our belief hold us back. And I think that's a very powerful illustration of, again, of that truth that oftentimes, either often or sometimes, what hold us back from doing what we want to do is not that we don't have the resources, but really it's our belief that we need to work on. And another thing that really stands out to me that when you say when we try to change from behavioral level, the change might seem to be happening, but it won't be long lasting. Because from what the way I understand what you just explained is that because when we just address the behavior without addressing the thought, or rather the belief, we are creating sort of this alignment between our thinking and our emotion.
Yeah.
And I think as a human being, we are designed to be, we are designed to work best when we are aligned. Thinking and feeling are aligned. And when we are out of alignment because we only want to work on the behavior, but not want to work on the belief, then we create it for ourselves inner conflict that actually will add into our problem in the future. So I think that's a very powerful awareness that you have brought into this conversation so early. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. And I love that you brought the alignment piece into it. I often think of alignment. I always think of alignment as train tracks. There's something magical about train tracks. I don't know if you've ever stood on a train track and just looked far into the distance, but if you stand on a train track, you look and they appear to converge, but you know the train tracks are parallel to one another. If the train tracks did this, I mean, they can have a curve, but it's got to go parallel. There must be an alignment. The train tracks can't wobble. They have to be congruent with one another, or the train's going to fall off the tracks, and that's a big mess. And so
Mm,
we derail ourselves in attempt to solve our problems. However, when we're solving the wrong problem in the wrong way, and we're really taking just a surface level approach, I think so often we do our best. However, we try to solve the problem and we don't know what to do. We don't know how to think about it. And I think when you don't know how to actually solve the problem, you do the best you can, but you're doing it at a surface level. When you gain a higher level of understanding or comprehension, then you can go deeper. And what I love about what you do in your community is that you work with personal growth oriented people. For me, I love working with people that have read a self-help book or two or 10 or have a foundation in personal growth and development, because there is an interest, there is a level of understanding and comprehension that is there or being developed. And like a closed mind says no, but when a
mhm,
mind is open and open to looking at things differently, there's a different level of willingness. And so often change can only happen when you're willing, because everyone is able to change, guaranteed. But change can only happen when you're willing. And if you're actively pursuing something, there's definitely a higher level of willingness right off the bat. And that's a
mm.
beautiful thing. For some people, it might happen in 2 minutes. For others, it might happen in 2 days. For others, it might take a few weeks or even a few months or a few years. But if you're willing to do it and you stick it out, it will happen.
Mm. Wow, I think that's a very powerful word that you just used, which is willingness. Because in our community, like I mentioned, our community are actually people who really into personal growth and really interested to grow themselves. And they have some basic knowledge, I would say. Like myself, I would consider have basic knowledge about it. However, having knowledge does not immediately translate into transformation.
Yeah.
And this element of willingness, that's really powerful, that I think has to be brought into the dynamic. And I wonder if you can share with us from your experience, what is it that often make people not willing to embrace their non-helpful beliefs?
Yeah, I think first, they just don't believe it's possible to change, right?
Mm,
Their fundamental belief system is this is the way it is, this is the way it's always been. And beliefs are actually our third most unconscious filter, and a deeper, a deeper, a deeper filter we have are actually our values. And we have families of beliefs. So if you think of beliefs, they are like the tree branches, the little tiny branches that come off a tree. But you are the trunk, and your values are the thicker branches that spawn off the tree. And then the
okay.
beliefs, the there are systems of beliefs around every core value, which dictates how much, like how you spend your time, money, and energy. We might think we have certain beliefs. However, where the rubber meets the road is how you're actually spending your time, money, and energy. And that will show you your real belief system, and those beliefs are so powerful, because when you start looking at how they're connected and how they're interconnected, you don't have to change every single one at a time. When you start changing it at a deeper level of values, or if you start changing the belief family, you'll knock more of them out at once, or you could do so much less work with the same effort. And
Hmm.
the thing is, we have a conscious mind and an unconscious mind. And the conscious mind, the logical thinking mind, is responsible for 5% of your results. This
Mm-hmm.
is where your um, this is where when you're older, you can make rational decisions. This is where your willpower lies. This is where you logically think things through. This is the mind you learn how to use in school.
Mm-hmm.
And it's ultimately responsible for 5% of your results. But your unconscious, and I keep saying heart, because your unconscious mind lives in every cell of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where your feelings are. This is where your identity is. This is where your belief system lies. This is where all of your basic functions, your basic bodily functions, your automatic functions exist. And there's so much that happens behind the scenes. There is about 128 bits of information per second that go into your conscious mind, that your conscious mind actually processes. But your unconscious mind receives 12 million bits of information per second. So there's a big difference. Your conscious mind couldn't process that. It would spontaneously combust. And so there are these filters. We have about 19 filters, but the second most powerful is the values, third most powerful is beliefs. And even working with those two, you can make such a dramatic difference in your own life when you start looking at how they work. But because the unconscious mind is so powerful, the unconscious mind works really, really fast, faster than the conscious mind can process.
Mm.
And I know we had a discussion prior to getting on this call where you talked about triggers, like what are things that trigger our expression of beliefs? Well, there is always a trigger, which will vary from person to person. There is always some kind of internal process that happens in the mind, in the conscious mind. Maybe it's a movie that plays, maybe it's some mental chatter, don't know, but something goes on there, and there's always a feeling attached. And it's like an architectural blueprint.
Mm.
All of the behaviors we express have a strategy connected to it. And beliefs drive behavior through strategy.
I see.
So this might require a whole other thing. However, there's something that happens in here, there's something that happens in here, and then you go do something, and that is your expression of a belief through a behavior.
I see. So that brought me like we have this chat right prior to this. We show up
Yeah.
into this channel. So I remember I was telling you this in this example, whereby when a person feels that she's angry or he's angry because he or she feels that not receiving enough appreciation for whatever that has been put out.
Yeah.
And when the anger is directed toward the other person, then this is the example that I talk about. Then that person who is angry actually loses the opportunity to work on his or her beliefs because he or she focuses on what's outside rather than inside and trying to use the trigger to ask, what is it in me? What belief that I actually hold that triggers me to become angry? And I was mentioning that probably one of the biggest possibility of the belief is that I actually also don't think I deserve the appreciation. And I really try to look for it from the other person. And when I don't get that validation, I'm angry. And if I am actually have a stronger belief that I am actually good enough, I am worthy enough. So despite other people giving me appreciation or not, well, if not, probably I still upset, but not angry as much because I hold that belief, and that belief sort of like help me to not be wounded as much by whatever that's happening around me.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder what's your thought about that?
So what specifically is your question? I just want to make sure I'm clear on that.
So in your knowledge and experience and expertise about working with beliefs, would you say that is the working of beliefs? And if that's so, what are some tips that you can probably share with us so that we can be fast enough to catch ourselves whenever we are triggered, not to put outside, but to really use that opportunity to ask ourselves, what is it the belief that actually I need to work on?
Yeah. And okay, yeah, beautiful. And I think first thing, back to awareness. You've got to have an awareness that there is something within you, and you've got to take that responsibility. you're not responsible for what happens to you. You are responsible for your response to it.
Mm.
And when when you want to start changing a belief or uncovering what's underneath it, you can ask yourself questions. You have to really look at like what's underneath that, what's underneath that, what's underneath that. When we work with private clients, like you can do a self-diagnosis and change things. When you work with someone else, then you can go layers deeper because it's hard to see the forest through the trees. Like I do this for
Mm.
clients. I go to other people when I've got big problems. If it's a little thing and I'm like, okay, I could deal with this. But if there's something that's been recurring, I usually go to other people because I know I'm cheating myself, I'm tricking myself, I'm lying to myself, and not intentionally, we just do it because human behavior varies greatly. The nature of people is always the same. We are still back in in our primal bodies. We're looking for survival. At our
Mm.
core, we are looking for survival. And so it's going to be unsafe for me to really uncover that limiting belief. There's usually
Mm.
going to be something, and maybe it's the belief, maybe it's even the identity that's connected to that belief. And so I'm going to do everything in my power to avoid really facing it. Whereas if someone else points it out, it's just there and it gets more neutral. So, but if you're looking to change a belief, then really having the awareness and the willingness to know that you are ultimately responsible for everything that you attract to you, not from a place of blame. However, because energetically, that's what we do. We are
Mhm.
magnets for everything we attract. And that can only come through awareness. So, awareness is always the first step. And then that willingness to go there is step two. When you're looking more specifically and you've got that foundation, then you can ask yourself, like, yeah, what is the belief that leads to this? Or another question that might be more constructive, how is that a problem?
Mm.
How is that a problem? It's a more unconscious question. How is that a problem? And you got to go layers deep, layers deep, layers deep until you get to the one that feels like it's you're punching yourself in the gut, or it's like a gut punch, or there's like, oh, that's the problem. Like it's not going to be the first
Mm.
answer. How is that a problem? Oh, well, they pissed me off. Oh, well, like you got to go a few layers deep, so usually 3 to 5 or 10. I mean, it's going to vary situation by situation or person by person. But when you get there, you get there. You're like, okay, I'm totally seeing where the problem is. And it's very difficult to do on your own. However, it's a more constructive question if you're doing like a self-diagnosis.
Mm.
And when we look at things, we often look at the presenting problem. So we look at the surface level problem that you think is the problem.
Mhm. Yes.
Procrastination, imposter syndrome, avoidance. Oh, people love to hide. Oh, lots of people love to. I don't feel good. I'm going to hide.
Yeah.
First thing people do
Wow.
is, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to stop being on social media. I'm not feeling good. I'm going to stop reaching out and making calls to gain business. I'm not feeling good. I'm going to retreat from all my friends and feel worse. Let's do that. So common. And and there are beliefs that drive these behaviors, right? And so you've got to know what the presenting problem is, but when you get to the root of the problem, it's like
Mm.
a dandelion out. You're actually pulling the root out instead of just pulling off the leaves and letting it continue to grow and strengthen. And this is where you don't want to look at the band-aid solution. You want to look at how it's showing up for you, but also what's underneath it so it could take care of a few other things that are connected to it. And
Wow.
root problems, like roots are they look like I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough,
Mhm.
I'm unlovable, I'm powerless. And they're like really big, heavy things that show up pretty much all the time. It's it's always ticking along under the surface.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
there, it's always ticking along under the surface. And when you deal with things at the root cause, it's going to impact everything else up the chain. And you'll get more bang for your buck.
Mm. It's okay.
Okay.
So let me extract some of the golden nuggets you have just spit out for us. So it's like quite a lot. of golden nuggets. Like, first of all, I think so amazing that you brought this word responsibility. I think that is, at least in my experience, that is often when things really change. When a person, I think there's this podcast, I think it's the Heart Mind Institute, the director called Fleet Mall has this podcast called Radical Responsibility. And I love that word, radical responsibility. Like, how can we take radical responsibility upon our life and not just blaming other people, not blaming situation, but take that radical responsibility for our life. Like to say, whatever that's happening to us, I contributed to that, like it or not. Like I may not like to like accept the fact that I actually contributed to what happened to me. Like you say, it feels unsafe. It's sort of like, oh, so this is my bad. This is not his bad. This is not her bad. This is my bad. And it feels unsafe. It feels not good to acknowledge that, okay, so what's happening to me is at least part of it is my bad. So I think that's a very powerful golden nugget for all of us that's hearing this. Radical responsibility. And also another thing that I really like stood out to me, you were mentioning this root cause. Like whatever that the presenting problem is, money, career, relationship, whatever, those are just presenting problems. And if we go layers like deeper and deeper, like, and I think the word layer is also powerful because it indicates to us that our awareness actually has layers. Like when we go one deeper, it doesn't mean that we have arrived. There might be something else deeper than that. And when we arrive deeper, that might not be something that really the root cause. And I think that is so powerful because that gives us this awareness that I can always go deeper until I can see the connection between that presenting problem with the root cause. I think that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. How can I see the connection between the presenting problem and the root cause? And there are four things that you're mentioning. The root cause is either I'm not worthy enough.
Yeah, they're usually not worthy, unlovable, not good enough, or powerless, generally, but they might be other derivatives of it or something similar, but it's not a, oh, it's not going to be like a fluffy, oh, I'm just a procrastinator. It's not that. It's going to be something deep.
And that I think connects a lot with, so in this community, we have one of our programs is called Restoring Your Heart. So that talks about heart restoration, emotional restoration. And that's a program that we adopt from another organization. And we have been running that since 2017. And in that program, we acknowledge that every emotional wound actually comes from four root causes, which is either it's about value, or either it's about safety or insecurity, either it's about acceptance, or either it's about relationship. And I can like sort of see the connection with the root cause that you're mentioning. Like, I'm not good enough is actually related to value. Like that belief created us to have wounds around value. And the powerless, that belief that I'm powerless created the wound of insecurity because I am powerless. I cannot protect myself. And I'm unlovable. That immediately connect with that relationship because if I believe I'm not lovable, how can I believe that people truly love me? And it's very hard to create good relationship on that base. And so I find it so amazing, really, really amazing that I think the audience will also find it amazing that actually whatever emotional wounds that we might encounter, that has something to do with our beliefs. The root, or rather probably, you mentioned something about core beliefs that actually created all other beliefs. And you were mentioning about derivatives.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think when you really look at it, the whole subject and the concept can be really complicated. because you love personal growth, I don't often talk in this level of depth, right? When we work with people or do workshops, we often cover less. I know your audience is like so into the mindset and they love learning about the nuances. And so I've shared more of the nuances, but these are things I often think about. And then you drip so people can learn them over time. But I think when it comes to solving the problem, I know one of the things you wanted to talk about was what do you do about this?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be complicated to solve the problem. And I love keeping things really, really simple. My book is short. It's got very action-oriented strategies because, like you said, it doesn't matter what you learn. Are you going to do something with it? And I think doing something with where you are and practicing it, that's going to get you further ahead.
Mm.
And so the more you can look at what are the common threads, like, yes, learn all the details. What are the common threads and what are they actually going to lead you to? What can you do about it? Um, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Mm.
Can you start changing it? And like I said, there's so many different ways to change a belief and they can all work, like EFT tapping. That's a great solution. I do a process called timeline therapy where you can literally eliminate a negative belief that's been with you, or even root, like a big one, that's been with you your whole life within a matter of minutes, usually somewhere between 5 and 20 minutes per belief.
Wow.
And then it's gone. And it clears up the energy when you can let go of these things. There are reframing processes where you can look at how you can perceive the belief differently. And sometimes it's just a matter of stepping into it. I gave you an example of my husband. When we first met, he was a smoker and he never identified as a smoker, so I think that was really helpful, but he smoked because he's like, "Oh, I had a girlfriend and she smoked, so I smoked, and my friends smoke, so I'll smoke when I go out." I'm like, okay, well, I did not want to be with someone that smoked. It was not part of my world, not part of my identity. And so I said, well, really like you, but that's going to happen. It's okay. I'm okay. Like, no judgment, but it's not, you're not for me. And he said, oh, I'll stop. And at first my belief system was like calling him on his BS. I'm like, no, you're not going to stop. You can't do that. But I'm like, well, let's see. Like, can you actually follow through on that? And he went out of town for a weekend shortly after he said that. And he did smoke. And he's like, how do you know? I'm like, I have a sense of smell. Like I can smell things. I could feel them really strongly. And he's like, that was like 2 days ago. I'm like, yeah, I know. I had that power at that time. And after I called him on it, he never touched it again, ever again. And
Mm.
he just decided, he just made the decision, just like he made the decision to start, he made an instant decision to stop. And I think sometimes we can make instant decisions. And what I wanted to share about that is so often people identify and say, oh, well, it's a habit. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, it's so hard. That's their belief system. His belief system was, well, I can stop. I don't need this, right? His belief
Mm.
system, I don't need this. His belief system is, I would rather be healthy and be with you. Okay. And he believed he could stop. And if you don't believe you can stop, you're not going to stop a certain behavior. But behavior change and belief change can be very, very fast. All you have to do is decide. He decided. And so one of the tools that I often teach, it's a do-it-yourself technique, is I really encourage people to write, because when you get it out of your head and onto paper, you can be
Mm-hmm.
objective. You can take yourself out of the blame game and you can be much more objective with things. But you write out the old belief, like
Mm-hmm.
change is hard.
Mm.
I think it's a belief a lot of people have. Change is hard.
Yes.
Rewrite it to the new belief. Change is easy.
Mm.
But then you know what's going to happen? Your unconscious mind is going to call bullshit. It's like, no, it's not. You're
There's
a
going to be
liar. Why
resistance.
are you saying this? And so often when you look at strategies to change beliefs, what do people do? Take the old belief and rewrite it to a new belief. And what does your unconscious mind do? It calls BS on you because it
Yes.
doesn't believe it yet. It doesn't believe it yet. It wants to, but it doesn't believe it. And so you could go, what you can do, you can go affirm 100,000 times, and maybe in 5 or 10 or 20 years, you'll finally believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not going to believe it. However, when you add the word decision, I've decided to make a change I've decided to change something each day. I've decided to change this behavior. I've decided to change this. I've decided to look at change in a whole new light.
Mm.
I've decided that change could be more simple than I've been making it out to be.
Yeah, that totally feels
Decided,
different.
yeah, I've decided that if they can do it, I can do it too. Look, you can make 5 decisions from that one belief. And I promise you, if you repeat that decision and you act on it and you focus on the decision you made within a week or 2 or maybe 3, a very relatively short period of time, you'll go to that belief and you'll be like, oh yeah, that belief is true. Change really is easy.
Wow. That's so awesome. I think just a little tweak. So, a little tweak in the affirmation that we are creating for ourselves can really make a lot of difference. And I think what I'm hearing is first to be able to honestly tune into ourselves when we are creating affirmation. Does does our heart say, yes, I truly believe that? Or no, like this is BS. I don't believe that. So, and if the heart says this is BS, I don't believe that, like you say, I can say it probably for 5 years and still the change doesn't happen because my mind doesn't buy it. But when we just put that word decide, then it changed the whole dynamic because I can make the decision. So that sounded to me like the first step that we can do. And the next step that you mentioned is act on it. I think that's also as important as putting the word decide. Because if I only repeat my affirmation day in, day out for 5 years and take no action about it, still nothing going to happen. But that's very powerful foundation to start with to create the change that we want. That's so awesome.
And it
And
doesn't have to be big actions. They could be little things, little decisions. If you repeat them, it's going to have a stacking effect.
mhm,
And um, so often we really we think change has to be hard, or change has to take a long time, and it absolutely can. However, you can make a decision in a heartbeat.
yes, I think we can immediately decide that I'm going to turn back and I can immediately change my direction at that instant. And like you say, decision is made in a heartbeat. And I noticed there's this one question that our audience has put in the comment box. So she was asking, what about if I believe something, but the people around me does not believe that? So how do I know whether it's time for me to change my belief, or rather it's okay for me to hold on to that belief despite people not having the same belief with me?
Well, not everyone's going to agree with you. And if you're going to be a leader, you're going to be a black sheep. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact is, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if you don't like where their lives are, if you don't like the results that their lives are having, if you don't like the results that their belief systems are holding, you may want to spend less time with them or start putting on earmuffs because you get to decide your own beliefs. And the fact is, as you grow and you elevate yourself, you will have to change your peer group, and it can be painful. This is one reason many people simply don't change. Why? Because you're going to have to let go of things that have been very comfortable and get out of the comfortably uncomfortable place that you've been for years or even decades. And you know in your heart and soul if you need to change a belief. You know if it's serving you. You know if you're lying to yourself. And this is where you may need to pull on your big girl panties and just admit it and say, you know what? They don't believe that. I know I need to do this. I know I need to change course. I know I need to move in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's not always going to be comfortable. It's like hard truth. It's not always going to be comfortable. And that's a difficult thing for a lot of people to accept.
Yes.
It will
Yes,
be
indeed.
worth it in the end because you are getting into a greater state of alignment. If it's actually moving you towards your goals, moving you towards your dreams, moving you to a greater state of alignment, it doesn't matter what other people believe. All that matters is what you believe, because you don't have to believe anything I'm saying today. None of you
Mm-hmm.
have to believe anything I'm saying. Take it with a grain of salt. Try it. Don't try it. It doesn't matter to me. I
Mm-hmm.
know what I believe is true, but I also know what I believe is true to me and what you believe is true to you.
Mm.
I used to care what other people thought. I was like, oh, if they don't like me, maybe I'm not good enough. It took me a long time to get off the I'm not good enough train.
Yes,
The
I think
to get off the
that one of the core.
I don't know enough train. That's probably another one. Personal growth. People are like, I don't know enough. I need to go to another seminar. I need to go read another book. I need to go do more, more, more. Maybe. At what
Mm-hmm.
point will you be good enough? Because your identity is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe it? And what do
Wow.
you need in order to believe it? Sometimes we focus so much of our effort to change the beliefs that are not working. We forget to look at what do we actually do? What are the beliefs that are working for us? How do we do the beliefs that do work for us? How do we operate in that capacity? And when you start focusing on what is working, on the positive, you have resources to be even more resourceful.
Mm. Wow, I think again, that's a lot of golden nuggets in there. Which stand out to me. There are quite a few that stands out to me. One is that sentence, not everybody is going to believe the same thing that we believe. And that's just a fact that we need to come to terms with. Because when we expect that people will believe this, all people will believe what I believe, then we are setting ourselves to be doomed. And for repeated frustration and repeated disappointment. And I think really the key is another thing that you mentioned. One is to accept the fact that it's okay if people don't agree with me.
Mhm.
I don't need, I may want to, but I don't certainly need everyone to agree with me. And if someone doesn't agree with me, that's fine. Like we have freedom to choose, like you say, we have the freedom to decide what we want to believe. And another thing that really stands out to me is one of the things that often made us, or rather hold us back, is really the courage to let go. Knowing that, okay, so if I want to stay in this belief, then I need to let go of certain things. It can be relationship, it can be friendship. So the question is, which do I value more? Like you say, the value is actually one of the things that also affect us on top of beliefs. Like which one that I value more? Is my own personal alignment and authenticity, or this relationship, or this friendship, or whatever that we hesitant to let go? And another thing is that you were mentioning about the support system or of other people, like the 5 people closest to us. And I think that's also powerful by asking ourselves, okay, so if I'm holding on to the belief, or if I want to create this belief, who are the 5 people that I can at least try to be more close to, so that I have support system in carrying on with this belief. So
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful and so practical.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's true because the people will either fuel you forward or they'll hold you back. And I don't think anybody wants to hold anybody else back fundamentally. However, they want to protect one another because, again, we're all about survival mode. And so if I'm your friend and you're doing something different that I don't understand that might be dangerous for you, you they may stop you. They may want, even if it's a good idea in theory, they may not see the future outcome that you're after.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'll hold you back. And it's almost like crabs in a bucket. They claw you down, they don't mean to, they're just trying to protect you. But they want to keep you as you are because change is uncomfortable. Change unconsciously is dangerous. Think back to the
Yeah.
primal picture. Change is dangerous because if you know how to get food, why would you change it? Because you might starve to death. Except today, it's more like, if you change and you start doing things like speaking on a podcast, oh my gosh, what if someone doesn't like one thing you say? Danger, danger. So your brain perceives it as danger.
Mm. So
And it turns into that vicious cycle. So yeah.
yeah, and that reminds me to um, that's this community of self-compassion created by Kristen Neff that I used to join. And I recall we have a discussion about this, like people who actually in reality hold us back, they actually usually have good intention, but they do not know that actually by doing that good intention, they actually not supporting us. And how
Yeah.
can we, as a person, know that, first of all, to give ourselves compassion, that it's okay if you feel the loss. It is a loss, like real loss when we let go of people. And it's okay if you feel the loss. And how can I support myself? How can I be kind to myself in this moment of loss? And also extend that compassion to other people. Like, I know you don't mean bad, but I, I I'm still going to go ahead anyway. And it's okay if you don't agree with me. And it's okay if you don't support me. You are free to live your life, like, but I also free to live my life. So it's really coming from that place of peace and freedom to just live each other lives.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something so simple and so profound. Like that everything has many layers to it. I think the biggest thing is going back to you ultimately know what's right for you. And you can't put your future in someone else's shoes. And when you pay attention to who you are, to where you're destined to be, to what your higher and greater purpose is in life, and you allow yourself to move forward with it. And I think I'm going to say with God as your co-CEO or with
Mhm.
spirit at your side, you can't do it alone. And I think so often when you might be leaving a community, it's lonely, or when you might be stepping away from a friend, or maybe you don't have to step away, you just spend a little less time or spend different time. Right? It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be a black and white thing. And there is when you have spirit that is leading you, it's a much more powerful path that you can
Mm.
take.
Yes, totally agree on that. Like we have a support for us. And I know there's so much more that we can talk about
Oh
this,
yeah.
really like so many things that we can unpack together. But since we have limited time, so I wonder if anyone wants to know more about your work or to see if they can explore more or together with you for a session or whatever, how can they find you?
Yeah. If anyone wants to download the Stop Procrastinating Your Life Away book,
Mm,
and you can go to my website and you can just go to stopprocrastinatingbook.com. I'm sure you guys can put a link in there, but you can download a free copy, but that'll connect you to our community. And there's a chapter in there on, I believe it's eight, chapter eight, chapter eight on, no, chapter seven, which is about letting go of your limitations in a snap. So that talks about limiting beliefs and it shares the limiting belief process. So it talks about beliefs and how they work. So that's one resource. And you can also book a free consultation and just see how you can work with us if this is something you're interested in pursuing. There should be a link on my website. And we work one-on-one with clients to do really fast personal breakthroughs to overcome these limitations in a very short period of time. And we also have group programs that have a beautiful community setting and workshops and opportunities if that is a better fit for you. So, but we're happy to just connect you with resources or opportunities as are appropriate.
Cool. So just checking that your website is myabundanceacademy.ca.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So for everyone listening, our tech support will put in the comment box the website of Larissa McCoot, and you can access all the information that she has just shared through her website, which is again myabundanceacademy.ca. So that's where you can find the resource, the book, and also how to work with Larissa if you want to explore that further. So thank you so much, Larissa, for this time. It's been a wonderful conversation. I feel so nourished just by having this conversation. So thank you so much. And I'm sure our audience feels so benefited from what you shared. So thank you again for sharing your wisdom.
Well, thank you for having me. It has been a pleasure. I feel like we can do 10 more of these and keep going and going with something.
Yes, definitely. And for all of you who wants to more about how does beliefs related to trauma, we will have another talk show on Thursday evening at 7:30 p.m. So stay tuned to our YouTube channel. Then we will have another discussion about beliefs and traumas. So we will definitely continue the conversation there. So thank you so much, everyone. And thank you again, Larissa. Yeah, definitely. I hope we can find time in the future and see how we can get together and just share your wisdom again. So thank you so much again. Have a great day ahead.
You're very welcome. Enjoy. Bye-bye.
Bye, Larissa. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend. See you on Thursday on the same YouTube channel, Ellen Patricia.